everybody. How are we today?
Good.
Yay! Thank you so much for coming out today. I really appreciate it. It's good to see everybody here. There's only a few faces that I don't actually know, so that's pretty fun. My name is Sarah Colley. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator here at the Great Falls Public Library. And we are always excited to be able to connect people and knowledge, and we do that in a variety of different ways. Author talks, like tonight, are just one of them. Author and history talks. It's kind of like a twofer tonight, actually. I love that. The library is a great place to be and exist right now because it's also summer reading. So adult summer reading, which is a thing, if you guys want to participate, it's a bingo sheet, and one of the boxes is to come to a library program, and guess what? This counts. Yeah. So if you are interested in signing up for that, that's right. When you get out of the elevator upstairs, there's a table set up right there, and you can find all of the information right on that table, okay? It's super fun, I promise, made for busy lives, because I made it, and I'm busy. So, the bathrooms are in the hallway. In case of an emergency, please take the stairs, which is out the door, to the right, and then to the right again. Don't take the elevator in case of an emergency, okay? Simple as that. All right, so today we have Megan Sanford. Megan is the Archives and Operations Manager at the History Museum and Research Center / Cascade County Historical Society. She has created a specialized pictorial tour of the Anaconda Copper Mining Company collection, having collected objects, photographs, testimonies, and memories over the last half-century. The History Museum and Research Center stewards the story of the Great Falls Reduction Department plant and endeavors to share the tales of its work and the work they did for the world. Megan's book is the Anaconda Copper Mining Company of Great Falls, and it is being sold right here by Cassiopeia Books. It is $25, and I'm told that all of the proceeds go back to the History Museum. So,
Wow, that's really nice.
right? So with that, please join me in welcoming Megan to the library.
Hello, everybody. Like she said, I am from the History Museum here in town. The wonderful book that you all are seeing and will see lovely photos of is completely from the collections of the History Museum. It's a collection of not only photos, but photos of objects in our collections and things like that, so that you can see that pieces of the smelter are still here as well. And you're my first test of this PowerPoint and everything, so please bear with me. I also apologize. I know I'm young. I was not here. I was not on the earth when the smelter stack came down, and I did a lot of research to put this book together, not knowing anything about smelting or the process, but I promise I gave it my best shot. And please, feel free to share a memory or anything like that, or, I'd love to know more. So let's give it a shot. What you're seeing here in this first image is the original Boston and Montana smelter. Boston and Montana created its smelter here in Great Falls in 1891, is when they broke ground. And it might look rather different from what all of you may remember. The smelter did evolve as the technology evolved, as they added departments and things like that. So like I said, the Boston and Montana Consolidated Copper and Silver Mining Company was its original start. I love this photo, it's fantastic. So here, you might see a rather unusual building. This is where they would do the original excuse me. This is where they would start by taking ore that was shipped up from Butte and roasting it, concentrating it, getting it cleaned up enough to take the next step. And the process for all of that was in a funnel down system, which is why the building looks that way. Over here, you've got our lovely power plant for Black Eagle Dam, all over here. Black Eagle Dam was established in 1890. Harris Gibson, who founded the city of Great Falls, said, oh, hydroelectric power is becoming a thing. And I'm pretty sure that I can make a whole city around that. And way up here at the top is the old stack. Not very tall, only about 186 feet tall, but it was sufficient at the time for what they needed. Fast forward a little bit to 1901. The company is bought and consolidated under Amalgamated Cowper. Some things have changed since then. As you can see, they've added some more to this, and the railroad has come further over for everything. One of the things I find really interesting is look how close the buildings are to the river. They were, in fact, just pouring out slag into the river at this point. Not the same standards as there is now. And one of my favorite things to show people is this bridge right here. So this was the walking bridge. It was built for the smelter people in 1891 so that if you lived on this side of the river, you could walk over to work. The first iteration of the 15th Street Bridge was there, but the problem is, if you're walking a mile over, and a mile back, it's a long distance. So they were kind enough to build this wonderful walking bridge, and it did come up here. I only have like one good photo showing that, but I love how clear some of these photos are. Aren't they fabulous? We scooch forward again. Here's another version. So you can see here's our walking bridge. People walk in here, and there's a staircase that would come up higher. Here is another part of the power plant. You probably all have seen the bricks when the river is low. Yes, ma'am.
She's 100 and she has relatives that walked on that bridge.
I know, that's so cool. I couldn't do that. I know it's not super high, but that's terrifying.
Was the floor of it made of wood too?
Yeah, it's just a walking, like, suspension bridge of wood. It's attached here, and it has a pylon in the middle, and then it's attached at the end. That's it. I could not do that. And it looks beautiful here. I mean, it's not too bad. Back further here, you can see a boarding house and the old club that the company had for the employees. Further up here is where the houses were that the management lived in and everything. And it's a little hard to see, but right here is the bell tower. Later we know that is also the spot where the waterfall was. But look how empty the rest of Great Falls is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing over here. And it's fascinating. But I really love how clear the photos are and everything. They're really nice. All right, so fast forward a little bit. So we're still in amalgamated territory. This is 1908. Well, a little bit before that. So the foundation work for our big stack started in December of 1906 and continued to July of 1907. That's where they were clearing the ground and getting ready to put down the foundation for the big stack. Here you see them putting down the first couple of bricks to build it. Those bricks were laid on April 7th, 1908. And I've got a fantastic photo here showing the different kinds of bricks that they used to build the smelter stack. They got all of the bricks, and I don't have a photo of it here, but the bricks were made locally. The Anaconda, or the Amalgamated Company, had their own brickyard just down from where the stack was built. Let's see, just down over here. And they also sold bricks to the city. It became basically another department that they could use. But yeah, all of it's locally made from local materials right there at the smelter site. And then here is just after the big stack is done. Here's your original stack at about 186 feet tall. And here's your big stack at 506. Um, the smokestack here was the tallest in the world until 1918, when the Washoe smelter was built in Anaconda. Their stack is just a little bit taller than ours.
Was that on purpose?
I don't know
To
if
be
it was
taller?
Oh, I love that.
Probably, I don't know, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I understand why they made ours a certain height for the processing and stuff. Maybe they decided they needed to make it a little taller after building ours. But it's hard to say for sure. So, oh yes, also during 1908, Great Falls had a rather large flood. It had victims. There were 2 children that were swept away during the 1908 flood. Remember how we were looking at how close those buildings were to the river? Yeah, this is a problem. The flooding started on June 5th. It continued. It was quite loud. As you can see here, it took out different sections. This is further back, a day or so later. It took out this entire building, because you can see here the frame here. But it destroyed a ton. They pushed railroad cars in to try and divert the water out, so it wouldn't come in and destroy more of the plant. But it took them quite a while, and like I said, this was in June. They're in the middle of building the stack. So they had some issues. The plant was closed for about 2 months to clean up all of the mess, to be able to get operations back up and running. But yeah, there's a couple of different photos in the book as well. This was just one of my favorites because you could see the progression of the water. All right. This is a slightly older photo, but it works pretty good for what we're doing. So we've got our big stack here. The red square is what I would call the shop offices. So this is where the administration building was, the boiler department, the paint department, the carpenter's department, all of the support company kind of things for the smelter here. Excuse me. Over here's our power plant. Here is the copper refining buildings. Here is later the zinc plant that they brought. And up here is the wire mill. This photo is between 1925 and 1957. But pretty sure, yeah, definitely before 55 when they added the wire mill for the aluminum plant as well. I wrote things down and it's like, make sure you look at your card. One of the things too is you might notice our building that was cascading before is no longer there. It's been altered and not quite the same anymore. When the Washoe smelter was built in Anaconda, all of the processing of taking copper ore and getting it to just being straight copper was taken to Anaconda and processed there. Technically, at this point, our smelter is no longer a smelter. It has become a refinery. This is just a good shot, though. It shows quite a bit. Oh, yeah, aerial. It'd be good if I read my own notes. Like I said, you guys are my first test. I'll get better at this. But yes, this is an aerial photo as of 1948.
Is that compliments of like the Air Force, or do we know who took the photo?
I actually don't know who took this photo. I think it's one of the ones that the Anaconda company donated when they were cleaning house. I need to fix some of my boxes. So, looking at the process of copper refining, once the concentrating part moved to Anaconda, they would send down in trains these, which are called anodes. They're about 650 pounds of 99.3% pure copper. They get unloaded, brought into the electrolytic building, and put into these vats. Now the way that, I'm going to go forward and then backwards to make this easier for everybody. Like I said, the anodes would come, they get refined, and through the electrolytic process, the copper loses the impurities. The impurities are washed out, the copper travels, in a way, to what's called cathodes. So we have our anodes before and cathodes after. The copper sheets that attach to the cathodes are stripped here, and then they're taken to the melting furnaces and melted into the different shapes that are then sent to either sent to other companies, or from here they go to the wire mill. Once the copper has depleted on the anodes, the scraps are sent back and they're made into new anodes so they can keep trying to get more and more copper from it. So here, you've got cathode sheets that are going in. It would be an interleaving system, so anode, cathode, anode, cathode, anode, cathode. And here you see a stack of copper ready and clean and ready to be melted. I am so glad that Anaconda made these fantastic diagrams, because this part wasn't so bad. Zinc refining is extremely complicated, and they have one for that too. Here is what copper would look like after the process. You've got the big long you've got the big long rods that would go mostly from here to the wire mill, and then they'd be stretched out and stranded and made into copper wire. Here's a slab of what one looks like. They would have cut a section to test it and see how pure it was and make sure everything's going well with the process. Here's some from when it was Boston and Montana. I won't lie, I was a little jealous. I have been to the new Montana Heritage Center, and this is a photo of one of those ingots in their display. I really wish we had some. We do not, but they have fabulous ones at the State Historical Society. But this way you can see they had them this size and this size, which you can imagine. Moving on to zinc. Okay, like I said, the zinc process is a little more complicated. So it kind of works in a similar fashion. You cook it, get it to a point where it's calcined. Basically what happens is the zinc arrives in a powder form called zinc sulfide. When we cook it, it becomes zinc oxide. It kicks out the sulfur, takes in the oxygen, and that's what makes it calcined. Now the fun part. From here, it's mixed with what they call leach, I think, or it's a sulfuric acid of a kind with an acid, and it goes through various tanks to get purer. They clean out the bad stuff, keep the good stuff. And it's really interesting. And then eventually, after it goes through the whole washing process, it goes into the same electrolytic kind of tanks where the electricity will make it purer. And those sheets, same way, stripped off of the cathodes, put into the melting furnace to become the slabs that we know of. Just a couple of photos showing some of the process. I do go into much more detail in the book, but I was like, again, I'm not a scientist. I took some science classes in college, nothing that covered chemistry or metallurgy or anything. But here you see a gentleman taking calcine that has been through the roasters over to the plant. Here you've got a gentleman watching as the leaching process is happening and mixing through. Yes, these are all roughly from the 20s and 30s. There is no safety other than a couple of masks in a couple of places. But I mean, come on, they're just getting stuff all over their clothes. And then here we're seeing the lead cathodes that go into the electrolytic process, and then they strip off the zinc sheets off of the lead. Like I said, kind of the same idea. And you get your product. They did have some that was specifically stamped for Anaconda. Companies would put in requests, and if they had their stamps, they would go ahead and stamp it and then send it out from there. Here you can see it being poured into the molds, and This is the final product being strapped onto a pallet and loaded and ready for the railroad. Okay. Again, sometimes the copper would stay here and go to the wire mill. Here is a fantastic photo of all of the copper wire. These photos in particular, well, this one in particular, is from around World War II when production was at its highest. Copper wire, honestly, was one of the many things that helped us during World War II. It was used for communications, for planes, for everything. It was fantastic. Another fun thing is this wire mill was the first in the state, and it was actually spurned, created with the idea of creating copper wire for the Chicago-Milwaukee-St. Paul Railroad. They wanted to electrify their railroad. Well, you need copper wire to conduct the electricity. So they were the reason they built the mill, and actually their very first customer. Oops. So this one's the copper mill. This is later. This is the aluminum wire mill. In 1955, Anaconda built a aluminum processing plant in Columbia Falls. I knew it would come to me. And in Columbia Falls, Montana, they would process it. It would come here, and from here they had a whole separate section that would make wire out of the aluminum. Anaconda was very good at making its own self-sustaining setup. Like I said before, we've got their own electricians, their own builders, their office people. And then as time went on and the science became more perfected and changed, they also had more products. What you're seeing here is what's called the cadmium plant. They had the cadmium plant here. In East Helena, they had a slag processing plant. Like I said, the Columbia Falls had the aluminum field, or aluminum plant. As they figured out how to do these things, they added more departments. Also, in Bonner, they had their own wood sawmills and things like that. So it's kind of it's interesting to watch them expand, to see how the science changed. One of the other things that I found really interesting is they promoted their employees. A few of the scientists that were there working, they published papers. They changed the way things were done and continued the science. It's really kind of fascinating. Like I said, they valued their people. We talk about company towns and things like that. Honestly, Anaconda is one of those people companies. You see here they're relaxing and enjoying lunch. This gentleman here is retiring. These are his retirement gifts. This is from the 1976 bicentennial. They had in the parade. They also had various programs. They had first aid competitions that went national sometimes. They had They had, like I said, they were sending their scientists to various conferences and things like that. They had a program that you could submit suggestions for updates and things that would make the company better. And if they chose your idea and it was a good idea, they'd give you a bonus check. But yeah, it's just, it's like anybody that you ask, they're proud that they worked at the Anaconda company. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that somebody might say they work there and then they tell you all the bad things. I actually haven't experienced that with the Anaconda company yet. And again, they valued their people, so they built them places to relax, places to enjoy, to share with their families. We've got up here, some of you have probably seen this, this is the Black Eagle Community Center. It was originally the Anaconda Company Club. It's not the first one, it's the second one. Built in 1950. The first one unfortunately burned down in 1943. But, you know, you can go bowling there, you can go, there's a cafeteria in there. I mean, they had all kinds of really neat stuff. They had a pool for the families to go and enjoy. And here's a nice shot of the fire bell and the waterfall that used to be there. They made it a pleasant place to be. In fact, that started in 1919 when the superintendent, Albert E. Wiggin, took over. He saw it and said, you know, just because we work in a dirty industry doesn't mean we have to be ugly. So they were able to make it beautiful. Company who was expanding from not only oil but to mining. But again, they inherited this. They had to figure out how to keep working with it. The air standards that had changed in 1979, Anaconda Company in Great Falls had violated those 45 times. It was just difficult. As the buildings were coming down, the decision also came down to take down the stack. What was the reinforcing bands that had been on this stack were taken off and taken up to Anaconda to reinforce their stack. There was a whole campaign to try and save our stack, specifically SOS. And they did a lot. They had their whole logo, they had a song for the big stack. A telegram was sent to the president asking him to step in and stop it from happening. It was a huge deal, and I know that. I'm sorry that I wasn't there to experience it. I wish I could have. The best I can do is give you the sequence of what happened. Unfortunately, the stack was blown down at about 10 a.m. on September 18th, 1982. It did survive the first blow up, much to the joy of the people of Great Falls. Ooh, back. Sorry, clicky buttons. They later had to go to Butte, get more dynamite, and blow it up a second time to get the remainder of it down. Sadly, there's nothing out there really anymore. They did sell bricks from the stack for as a fundraiser at one point. It was Pacific Steel that, or well, today what we know as Pacific Steel, that did the demolition and cleanup of all the buildings and everything. As a lot of you may know, the smelter houses were offered for sale. 9 of them were sold. I was able to track down for the most part where they went. Some of you may know Rich Ecke. He bought one of the houses. But some went as far as out to Chester on a farm and things like that. The ones that weren't sold were unfortunately also torn down. But there's a little bit of hope in this whole story. What I'm sharing with you here is what's left. Pieces of what was there. These are all things that we have at the History Museum. We have a rather large collection of things, but I thought this was a good sampling to share with you all. The Army-Navy flag that the Anaconda Company earned during the war years. This is very, very deceptive, and so is the photo in the book. That thing's 9 feet long. We didn't know until we unrolled it and tried to take a photo of it. But that flag is still at the museum. Pieces like these little trinkets that they used to hand out as souvenirs, they're still all over the state. You can find them all over the place. This is as complete collection as we can find that we have in our collections. Other traces, you know, some of the products. This is one of my favorite things here, is when there was leftover bits or stuff, the workers were allowed to take it and use it and do what they want with it. Specifically, they'd make little ashtrays and bowls and things like that. There was one guy who told me he had an entire bucket of copper nails, and they just let him take them and he roofed his whole house. But it's just kind of fun how some of that stuff worked out. And then, of course, the last sheet stripped
at the electrolytic plant. I mean, that's super cool. The History Museum is very happy to be able to share this history with you guys, to keep it alive as best we can. I will tell you, we don't have an exhibit up right now. We do change exhibits, but we're hoping that this book, we did a documentary as well on the smelter that you may have all seen on Montana PBS. There's another one that was done not too long ago about the smelter that the Big Sky National Heritage Area did. They did an interview with Dick Sloan. He is the gentleman that was the last manager of the smelter, and then turned around and became the liaison between ARCO and the Montana EPA, or DEQ, sorry. And he talked about his experience in the history as well. Our goal is that this is not going to disappear. We're going to make sure that the smelter survives in memory and in our objects. And we'll keep telling the story. And I hope that this book does justice. I know, again, it would have been nice if I had worked at the smelter, if I understood it a little bit better. But I promise that we referenced and checked. And actually, the only other book written about Anaconda in particular was written in 1957. That's the last one that was done. So it seemed appropriate to do a book. Thank you all very much for being my guinea pigs. I appreciate it. I'll get better. And wish me luck. Saturday, I'm going to speak at the School of Mines on Miners Day. Hopefully they don't eat me. But thank you all very much.